is one of the things I really like in the materials. I pick these up as I go around town. These are horsetails, which I picked up at Smith Ranch. They're this beautiful, almost painted material that when covered in acrylic is quite strong, and it does all kinds of things for me. It makes tillers, it makes oars, it makes boats, it makes rafts. And here's a sample, a tiny one, but this boat has a tiller of horsetail. Basically, it's a fiber formed on a rock, and this is, mulberry bark. This is milk fiber. I have a sample here of bamboo fiber. This is made very much the way they used to make rayon. They now make these natural materials of milk, soy, bamboo, other things, and then they spin it and they end up with these fibers. So I make materials out of fibers like this by overlaying them, making them into shapes, and gluing them. This was made on a balloon, so I've got a sail out of it. You also notice shells that are used and little objects that to me are natural, like bits of bamboo. This is the mulberry bark. Here's a shell on the tail. And what else? Oh, I love to wrap rocks together. And I started out using these rocks to hold the shape of this little baby palm tree. And ended up liking each other, so they stayed together. Another shell. But this is basically what you might see along the walkways, where there are seeds of palms that have sprouted and they've made this little fan-shaped leaf, which when molded ends up being the spine of a boat. So there's one more thing here to give you an idea of how far afield I go. This I picked up in Fiji from a woman who was making malays, and she said this comes off of a tree, it's bark. It just strings off like this, and they poke the flowers into it and then make it into a lei. But I strip it and use it for binding things together. I try to avoid glue or anything that isn't natural.
This is really amazing to me because this is what mulberry bark looks like when you go and buy it. It's this stiff stuff that's bark, and then you boil it. And when you boil it, it looks like this. It's sort of gooky. And you can pull it apart, this like this. You can see how this is going to start.
It's like lace.
It's like lace. So the interesting thing about this bark, when you pull it, you can do all kinds of things so that you can make it really lacy, so it looks like something like this, so it gets really wispy and very see-through like.
Keep it down.
Okay. Or you can get it so that it does a little bit of both. Let me take this one. So this is kind of wispy and still has some structure through it. And this is wispy with a lot of structure to it, so it will hold itself up. And I think one of the nice things that I have going for me is that I don't know what you're supposed to do with mulberry bark. So after I pull it apart and let it dry, I just start sculpting with it. And people ask me, how do you get it to do what you do with it? And someone had asked me if I had a frame that I draped this mulberry bark over. And I don't do it that way because I never know exactly how the shape is going to go. So I use that blue tape that painters use because you can tape something together and it doesn't pull anything off. So I just sort of hold the bark around, tape it in places, tape some more places, untape places, tape more places, until the mulberry bark starts saying, this is the way I want to be on this piece. And so that's how it grows.
In fact, I think what you just said is kind of a key to how we work. We both believe that the material has its own idea, and you can't force it.
Absolutely.
And you do have to communicate enough with it to realize that's the way it wants to go. And that's also the wonder and joy of it, too.
Exactly. And that's the joy of my stealing boats, because she makes a lot of little boats for me. And I bring them in and I say, do you want to be here? And they'll say yes or no. And I have to listen very carefully because they have a mind of their own and they won't let me force my will on them.
I think one of the wonders of this particular show, and to me it's a wonder, mainly because Barbara really created the combinations that work so well together. But I think it's a wonder because I have not seen any fiber and clay so well integrated. The two materials, and you see other things, but the way the mulberry bark integrates with your texture makes it seem like it grows out of the clay. And we're hopeful, and we would love to have this show travel. We're looking for other spaces that might handle this work, so that for one thing, we don't have room back in our studios to put it.
Right.
But for another, we just think it's a whole new art, and it should be seen by as many people as possible. And we're very grateful that Falkirk has given us our start.